Hi, good evening, and welcome to the school committee meeting of Tuesday, March 26, 2024. I'd like to welcome everyone and call the meeting to order. We just left our executive session, so I appreciate your patience on the late start. We open all our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll now share the reading of the mission statement. The vision of the Wakefield Public Schools is to graduate students who are confident, lifelong learners who are respectful and caring members of their community. Our mission is to prepare students for college, career, and community by providing rich and challenging curriculum, high-quality instruction, and educational experience that meet their individual needs and interests. At this time, we're going to go into public comment. I know we have one person in studio and we see one person joining us virtually, so we're going to start with the virtual public participant. Can you hear us?
I can.
Awesome, thank you. If you could just introduce yourself and then you can proceed with your public comment. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. My name is Mark Trachtenberg, parent and citizen of Wakefield. So my statement is very simple. Chairwoman Lehman and distinguished members of the school committee, you guys are in receipt as of this afternoon of correspondence regarding the magnitude of issues at Wakefield Public Schools under the current administration. My team has spent months trying to come to resolution with the current administration on these issues, as well as many other issues that have come to our attention from the community throughout this process. Our goal is to make positive change for the students, teachers, and the community, to which the current administration does not want to do. As stated in our correspondence, we're requesting an immediate attention to this matter, as well as a meeting to be scheduled with the school committee directly. Thank you very much in advance for your willingness to consider such a request, and I hope you guys have a wonderful evening.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we have one in studio. Hi, Dawn. Come on up.
How are you?
Thanks for coming.
Oh, thanks for having me. Hello, my name is Dawn Millward. I live at 18 Emerald Street. First off, thank you everyone for doing what you do. I know it's a lot of time and effort. I appreciate it. So it was brought to my attention last week that I had accidentally been unsubscribed from all Wakefield Public School emails, which is probably why you haven't heard so much from me this year, which is probably a good thing. But guess what? I'm back. I got my emails, and here I am. So, first off, I want to congratulate all of the fall and winter sport teams, music, theater, and the coaches. I'm lucky to deliver the newspaper every day with my son. I mean, he delivers it, and I just like read it as I deliver with him. And every single day there are talented people being recognized, and the coaches. Wakefield is so blessed to have such great, talented students and adults that help them along the way. So, as always, I've always said, proud to be a Wakefield citizen, grew up here, graduated here. I love this town. Last week at the Galvin, there was a medical emergency, and I was informed everything is good, student is good, and that's huge. However, an email went out, and the subject matter was shelter in place. I think nowadays you hear that, and automatically you think gun violence, something serious, something bad, dangerous. I would like to suggest that going forward, and I can tell you from the text that I received at work, I am a teacher, there was a lot of nervous parents out there. The stories I heard were crazy. So I would highly suggest using terminology such as a no-pass zone or something less severe as a shelter in place for situations that you just need the hallways cleared, there might be a medical emergency, something going on that someone needs privacy, but to get an email shelter in place, that like elevates people, unfortunately nowadays. So I just wanted to come here, that, you know, that's the terminology we use in the school I teach in Methuen. We hear it all the time. It's for just simple things to someone had to go out on an ambulance for a peanut allergy. We just need the halls cleared. But as a teacher, as a student, we know there's nothing serious happening. So I would just like to suggest that. I think it would ease a lot of parents, students, and even teachers who all of a sudden hear shelter in place and it's for something that's not serious. So, all right, and the last and final thing I'm here for. I'm gonna pull up my my more important notes, you know. Let's see, where does this picture? Tech is not my thing, so I apologize. There we go. Oh, come on, big picture. This is where I normally text Pete and be like, Pete, how do I do this? All right, so I have been asked to speak on behalf of several 8th grade parents. I'm also here to speak for myself as an 8th grade parent. On March 12th, 2020, the current 8th graders left their 4th grade elementary school, never to return to their elementary school again. They had no parties, no field trips, no concerts, no end of the year celebrations. They have never had their moment of being all one together as a group. This is why I'm here tonight to express not only my concerns or what I would like to see, but a group of other 8th grade parents. I truly think this class deserves a whole class moving on ceremony, one that friends and families can watch each other move on to the next chapter. This 8th grade class did not get to have an all-school chorus concert or a typical 4th grade moving on celebration due to COVID like I had just expressed. Now many of these 8th graders will be sharing their last school days together as some are heading off to private schools. I do not understand why it cannot go back to how it was prior to COVID. A ceremony during the day to acknowledge all those getting team-based and content awards, and then a moving on graduation ceremony at night. I think doing it this way allows for the school to celebrate a wide range of students in a meaningful and personal way that was described in the email we got today, and then also allows the grade to graduate and celebrate on a whole. I do hope that teacher coverage is not playing a role in doing graduation team-based. I would assume that if an awards ceremony was to be held during the day, all 8th grade teachers would be able to participate, considering the school is able to safely operate on Good Friday with enough support subs and staff, that these classes would have coverage for students not attending the ceremony. I thank you for your time and your and taking my thoughts and those other 8th grade parents that I'm here to speak on behalf tonight, that we would like to see the 8th graders have a ceremony during the day for all those that are getting the awards, and the parents that are going to those awards, obviously their child will be getting something, and then at the end of the day, or on a night, since it is, I believe, an hour ceremony, that's where you could have the chorus and the singing, and a quick, everyone gets up, gets their diploma, moving on as a whole class. This group has never been together. People will say like, oh, they can take their pictures at the chaos, or they can take their pictures at the dance. Well, not everyone's going to the dance, and a lot of us work during the day and aren't there for the chaos at the lake. And we want to see our friends graduate with their other friends and get pictures of them dressed up, which we get to see once or twice a year if they have to go to something. So I'd really like you guys to take into consideration all of the parents' feedback that you got today in the survey. I do hope that the schedule already got sent out with all of the 8th grade moving on. I do hope that doesn't mean it's already dead set in place, and if the survey got a lot of feedback that people would rather it in 2 separate things, that could be adjusted. So that was it. I appreciate all your time and effort in doing everything you do for our students. Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night, thanks.
Is there any other public comment? No. and online? Okay, so we'll close public comment. Thank you everyone for coming. The Student Advisory Council, hello, how are you?
So we just have a couple of updates for today. The first of which was that ELA MCAS for grade 10 started today and will continue on tomorrow, and that there was a late arrival for all non-testers on both days, and that so far things went really smoothly with the testing. Term 3 also ends next Friday, which is April 3rd, and report cards will be sent out before April vacation. Spring sport tryouts started on March 18th, and games are set to begin next week, and for some sports teams later this week. Our Wakefield High School Athletics Director, Dr. Brendan Kent, was also recently elected as the president of the Middlesex League, which is a really big milestone for him. And the Wakefield Memorial High School Jazz Ensemble received a gold medal at state finals on the 16th. They were one of only a few gold medals given in Division II for the entire state, and they will now get to play in a gold medal showcase concert at the Hatch Cell in Boston on Sunday, May 5th.
Also last week we had a guest speaker come in on Unity Day. His name was Anthony Valentine, and he talked about a lot of like diversity and inclusion, and like it really like hit the students well, like, and it was very relatable information. He was a very good speaker to have. It's now time for the seniors to buy their cap and gown. Orders are due by April 12th. Information has been sent in the public weekly, sent out by Principal McLeod. Junior prom is coming up next week. Tickets are no longer available. It's being held at the Black Swan Country Club on Wednesday, April 3rd. Senior prom tickets are also now on sale. Prom is on May 29th at Cruiser Port in Gloucester. Grand March will be in the Upper Common at 5:15 p.m. and bus transportations will be provided for both proms.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? No, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Do we have a consent agenda?
We do. Move that the school committee approve the minutes of the March 12th, 2024 school committee meeting and the minutes of the March 20th, 2024 public budget hearing as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? There's none opposed. It passes unanimously. Thank you, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Lyons, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm just looking at survey data from the end of year celebration ceremony for the Galvin.
Oh, you have that?
Yeah, surveys were sent out, so more information will be forthcoming on that. So I'd like to get back to kind of our calendar discussion that we started. And so we prepared 2 drafts of the calendar just to give the committee an update. And of those 2 drafts that we shared kind of an A and a B. Kara, do you want to summarize a little bit about those 2 drafts?
Yeah, so since our last meeting, we've had additional feedback. We had a meeting with Doug and Stephen, myself, and the WEA leadership team to just get additional feedback and work out some questions and concerns. So the feedback was really helpful, and that helped us. I shared with you the 2 versions that we're looking at as of right now. The short of it is one of the versions, the goal is to streamline the calendar to make it just more consistent and to avoid midweek disruptions for family scheduling. So calendar A has the early release half days and teacher conferences on Fridays. And then calendar B would have them on either Mondays or the Tuesday after a long weekend. And just trying again to attach the early release to a weekend. I think logistically the Friday is easier in a couple of ways, but we could work with the Monday, Tuesday if we have to. And I think we at the leadership meeting with WEA, we just, again, collected feedback. We've had some email correspondence after, and one of the action steps from that meeting was that they would seek to get additional feedback from the unit and then bring that back to our next meeting. Did I miss anything, Stephen, that doesn't capture it?
No, I would just say, sort of a thank you to the members of the WEA that sort of shared, they gave some great insight on sort of conference days, sort of showcase days, things that impacted sort of their direct levels. And I think sort of having that feedback as part of the calendar conversation was really helpful. So I thought it was a great conversation. It was good that we have sort of two options to kind of get feedback on.
So ideally, so we wanted you to see the most recent versions, and which I emailed to you today. And then I think in terms of timeline, we'll reconvene April 2nd, and then I think April 9th would be, I think the next step would be school committee. If you have additional feedback, we would love to hear it, and then we would probably be ready for the vote by then.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think your point, Stephen, is really important. I think last week was a big week for us, and collaborating with the WEA. I think, that started on Monday, collaborating on some things, and which, led over to Tuesday. We have a standing meeting with the leadership, and I think that the meeting was really the first of its kind, where we collaborated for quite a bit of time, and then over email to refine dates and conferences, and the WEA leadership group, the board, I think all weighed in across the board. So we definitely appreciate their thoughts, their willingness to provide feedback and get our calendar as good as it can be. I also think that parents are going to be pleased how cleaned up the calendar is, right? And so one of our goals has been kind of increasing instructional time, and I think this calendar does that. But it also there's a lot more consideration for families and just how they're scheduling. If you look at November on either draft of the new calendar, either one, and you compare it to last year, there's far less color in November, which means there is greater continuity in instructional days, which I think will be a benefit to students, families, and to teachers. Yeah. So that's the update on our feedback on the calendar drafts. If anyone has any questions or feedback, happy to take it.
From what I understand, we're possibly be voting on it at the next meeting, because it'll be on the table for.
So, yeah, the way we left the last meeting was just let's clean up the two versions with the feedback that we received, and then I think there's a desire to seek more feedback from the unit on the two options, and then we'll reconvene on April 2nd. Then I think the next meeting is April 9th.
Yeah.
For the school
So
committee.
the reconvening at the 2nd is, again, another meeting of the joint labor management meeting, which is where we meet with WEA leadership. So they will have put the two revisions to the membership, seeking feedback. They'll bring that feedback back to the JLMC meeting, where we can talk about it a little bit more in next week. And then the following week, when we meet again, we'll hopefully have sort of all the pieces on the table for us to vote on.
Okay. Kevin?
The first day of school, though, is the same in both versions, right?
Correct.
So parents can plan for
First and
end of
last.
summer.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
And vacations and sort of,
And Pete, we added the feedback from the last meeting around the 5 snow days, what the last day would be. But yeah, if there's anything else that anyone caught, feel free to email or reach out in any way.
And one last thing, Kara, is that we will be including sort of the varied holidays.
The religious holidays, yep.
Okay.
Yep. I haven't pulled that together with updated dates for 24th, 25, but we could do that.
Great.
Any other questions for Kara or Doug?
Thank you so much for the feedback. Our next agenda.
Oh,
Go ahead.
can I make a suggestion?
Of course.
Can we take the next two out of order, because we do have invited guests, and I'd like to get our guests in and out so they can go to bed for us.
Absolutely.
We're so grateful to you. Okay. Yep. So we have Joanne Marks, our 5 through 12 science curriculum coordinator, and Lindsay Mosca is our K through 4 STEM curriculum coordinator. And they're here tonight. As you've seen with our other curriculum reviews in the district, we had ELA last year, math the year before. We're currently in the middle of a science, technology, and engineering curriculum review. Joanne and Lindsay are heading that up, and they're here tonight to give a midpoint update. Okay.
So,
thank you.
As Karen said, I'm Joanne Marks. I'm the science curriculum coordinator for grades 5 through 12. Thank you for this opportunity. We're hoping to give you a pretty brief but interesting glance at where we've been, where we are now, and what we see as coming up in our future.
You guys know me. I'm Lindsay Mosca. I'm currently the K4 Math and Science Coordinator of the district. Yeah, we're excited to let you know what we've been up to.
Do you need a clicker?
You could take
Or,
one.
oh,
I'm good.
Oh, Doug has it. Oh, good.
We could just point every time we use the slide, yeah.
Because we're going to be clicking the next slide.
perfect.
Perfect. So I think this is a spiel that most of you have heard multiple times in the last few years about why do we do a curriculum review. And our major point is we want to find out is what we set out to do in our schools in each content area, is that actually happening? Are students learning? We want to know if our current practices relate with current research, the field of education and what is considered best practice and effective in the classroom really changes over time, which makes a lot of sense considering how kids' experience in the world changes over time and what is currently known about how to most effectively teach kids and help them learn. And also we look at moving forward and what are we going to do, how are we going to do it, how we know we're going to accomplish it. And so this is a process that, was revamped back in the 2020-21 school year with math, and we've kind of continued to evolve that process based on different needs and different subjects as we go.
So just to give you a little bit of background in the science frameworks and what Wakefield has been doing with science. So as in all of our curriculum, our work is guided by the state standards. They lay out for science, technology, engineering, content and practices, science practices that should be discussed, covered, worked on, applied at each grade level. And so if we go back to 2013, across the country, there was the next generation science standards. That was a really big shift. Not only it was a move away from know this content into learn this content through doing this work of science. And there was a really huge shift to diving into relevant phenomenon and thinking through skills and how to apply science while you're learning the content, and less about remember this vocab, remember these things. So that was in 2013. It was a huge shift. In 2016, Massachusetts updated their frameworks, and many states completely adopted the NGSS. Massachusetts adapted the NGSS. It is very, very similar, but there are a handful of standards at the various grade levels that are Massachusetts specific. And then there are some language changes. But overall, this feeling of shift in philosophy and shift in the way students should learn science and technology and engineering is also applied in these new Massachusetts state standards. And by new, I mean the ones from 2016. So right after that was the last time that Wakefield did their science curriculum review. And so the state had just put forth these new standards. Many curriculum were out there saying, look, we've got stuff for you. And in reality, what we know now, and there was no way to know this then, but what we know now is those curriculum were not necessarily providing that new take, that new vision of science education. They were moving things around to match the new standards. And so the content shifted, but this feel like the essence of the standards was not really represented in any new curriculum at that time.
If that sounds familiar, that's exactly what happened in math as well. So if you remember back a few years ago, that idea of moving from make sure you know these steps to do you understand what you're doing and can apply it to new things, very similar kind of progression in science. And we, like most other districts in Massachusetts, fell victim to timing and relabeling of materials when we last adopted.
And no other options.
And no other
it was it.
The best we could at the time.
So we began our curriculum review last spring. We can talk a little bit more about the timeline later. And what we are doing is we've learned, right? We've seen this change. There's been a lot more research and work done in this shift of education. Everyone's still really working on it. I would say across the country, that change in essence of the standards, even though they were developed in 2013, schools are still working to figure out how to do that well. And so that's where we are, right? We've using these new standards with our understanding of them and looking for how we can move our program forward. In what we do also know is coming up is at the middle school grades. So this is grades 5 and grade 8 are the 2 middle school levels that the state tests for science, technology, and engineering. They are planning pretty big shifts in the style of the MCAS test. That, from DESE's perspective, is to help drive this shift in essence of the standard. So if we're going to ask students to learn this way and hold students to this standard, then we should be testing them that way as well, instead of just knowing the content, just knowing the vocabulary. So that's been part of the struggle with teachers, and with what do you do with students in front of you when the essence of the standards say one thing, but we know at the end of the day the test is not testing that it's testing the old way. And so the update, I think, will help to drive that, but it's also something that we need to understand well as we make our moves forward. So as we started our curriculum review, one of the first, and I would say most exciting conversations that we had was getting our team together. We have a curriculum team that ranges from pre-K through 12th grade teachers, and with a variety of backgrounds. And we asked them to describe, in your vision of a classroom, what should students be doing? What should teachers be doing? And it was a vibrant, exciting conversation. And I think that ultimately is what's driving our work, is that we want to see in Wakefield our students doing science, doing engineering, solving problems, discussing real life applications. And that's really the direction and the essence of the standards where we want to go. Which brings us to our timeline. So again, we began this work last spring in forming our committee. We sent out a bunch of surveys last spring. We surveyed staff, we surveyed students, we surveyed families. We did kind of a big data dive, right? We're collecting a lot of information. We used information from back to school nights, and we looked at lots of data. And then we started to develop our vision. Lindsay will speak to that in a little bit. So we've been moving along. We've done a lot of work. We have an excellent committee this fall. Now into the winter, we've been diving into some of what's out there, what materials exist out there now, and how updated are they to this new essence of standards. Not much is what they started. And then hopefully by this spring, we'll be able to present recommendations for our plan moving forward.
So part of our process for developing a vision for science, technology, engineering, teaching, and learning with our teachers was, like Joanne said, to get feedback from parents and families in the community, to have our teachers working together with administrators. We had a few students join us for this process. They were some of the best wordsmiths in the group. They were really great adjective producers. And we really tore apart a lot of different value statements that we had about what is important and what should our teaching and learning look like. And so very similar to our process with math and for ELA, I think you'll see a lot of overlap in these statements, which is a really good thing. It means that we're really valuing the same things in Wakefield. We're really trying to tie back to the mission of Wakefield Public Schools in each of these individual content areas. If we go to the next slide. This is where we landed. And so, you'll see that there are elements of really valuing hands-on science, but making sure that critical thinking is an important part of what we're doing. We're not just trying to teach things kids they can look up with the device in their pocket, but teach them skills they can apply to other things. Looking at student-centered classrooms, which is very similar to our ELA and our math visions, where we really want kids to be the drivers and constructors of knowledge. And thinking about how this ties into the bigger picture of making evidence-based decisions and ethically navigating the scientific experiences in their world. And what we really wanted to do is connect this to the idea that we're not just preparing our students for an STE career, for sort of all different ways that science, technology, and engineering might be part of their lives. In terms of exploring the marketplace, which was sort of what we have done after we did a lot of training on different ways to evaluate curriculum, one disadvantage that we've had in STE curriculum review is that number one, there are less choices for what's out there in the marketplace, but number two, The metrics that we used to kind of measure curriculum from edreports.org and Curate, which is the Massachusetts-based curriculum review program, has not evaluated a lot of science yet. They're kind of tied up in unimportant things like math and literacy. And so they haven't evaluated that many yet. And so what we did for our training with our team was we went over the different ways that those two organizations evaluate curriculum, and then we kind of culled and gleaned a few different really important value statements based on our vision, so the teachers could, when they're looking at curriculum on their own, they have a keen eye of what are the important things to look for. And so they were kind of trained on sort of a customized Wakefield tool to do some evaluating, since not a lot was sort of organized by the professionals. Some of the greatest conversations looking at those reports of the ones that did exist, the teachers like, this is really extensive. Like, there's a lot to these reports. Like, I know, we wish there were more of them. But we got to a really great place in terms of exploring that marketplace, and we have teachers kind of set up exploring different resources at this time.
Do you want to speak to some of the challenges? Or am I doing that?
I skipped the challenges part.
You did. I mean, we
So
can skip the challenges.
I did the very few. You want to do the?
I can talk about the time structure.
Yeah.
I just feel like, so again.
I really got one of those.
It's fine. So as Lindsay said, that we have limited options. And so we're looking at what's out there, and we'll use that to make our decision. But some of the other conversations we've been having as far that are specific to Wakefield are looking at the timing and the structure that's available for science K through 12. So initially, when we started this process, we were imagining a curriculum that would combine grades K through 5. Even though 5 was at Galvin, we felt as an elementary model that would make a lot of sense to have like a K-5 science curriculum, and then a 6-8, and then move on to the high school. And pretty soon into our research, we just realized that because there's a huge time difference in the amount of that students have science in 5th grade compared to the amount of time they have science in K through 4. And we are incredibly fortunate and love dearly our elementary science teachers. But to find a curriculum that could suit both of those equally is nearly impossible. So we moved away from that. And so we've shifted now to looking for curriculum that will really address the time needs for our K-4. And also looking at the ELA and literacy standards and the new curriculum that we've adopted at the elementary level, which has a lot of nonfiction and has incorporated a lot of science. So while we don't have as much, as much science time as we want at the elementary school, all the other things are important too, because they are incorporating so much more science in their literacy now, we've been doing a really methodical work of looking at what standards are being addressed in literacy and making sure we're highlighting the other ones when the science teacher comes in, so that we're not, so we're efficient. We're efficient in our use of that time and covering as many of those standards as we can with the time that we have. So for now, we have shifted to looking for curriculum that is 5-8 and grouping 5 with 8, which also makes a lot of sense. It's just not where we started. And then the Massachusetts standards having unique features, I think goes back to what I mentioned. Because Massachusetts did not adopt the NGSS, there are these one-off standards here and there. And what that means is that any curriculum that is designed nationally, because there's no curriculum designed for Massachusetts, we will have to adjust anyway. So we don't want to just adjust all of it, but we recognize that there will be work to make sure that we're addressing all the standards. Okay, I got there.
Great. So in terms of, after all of that work in all of this process, where we're at right now is in kindergarten to 4th grade. We're working with that team of teachers to keep exploring resources that support our hands-on model. Really what we want when our science teachers in elementary school go into the classroom is their hands are on science, and we're doing some kind of activity that's really hands-on and gets the kids really excited about doing experiments and kind of working through those science practices. And we're also refining the scope and sequence to align with the new literacy curriculum, like we talked about. At kindergarten to fourth grade, what this is likely the end result is going to be is a curated set of lessons from a few different resources that really meet the model and meet exactly what we need because we have such a unique model in the district. And so we have a lot of really great things so far, and it's really a matter of reorganizing it to best align with our new literacy curriculum. And as we wrap up this year, with the science review in K4 and our first year of using this new literacy curriculum, we're finding a really great opportunity to align those as much as possible with both content and literacy and hands-on science when teachers are able to push in.
Oh, wait, go back, please, Doug. I'm going to talk about the other. So, so just as where we are right now, as far as grades 6 through 8, we've narrowed down our options. And as Lindsay mentioned earlier, all teachers at the 6 through 8 level are exploring some of these resources. So we're digging into them. We're going to be trying some of them out in our classrooms. And hopefully that will give us just more information about how it lives with students, how it lives with teachers, and can help us make our decision. And then in grades 9 through 12, it's a whole nother story because each one, unlike a math or a writing program, every content course in the sciences at the high school is different. And so they don't produce a science curriculum that you can just have. So we, to help narrow our work, we looked closely at our biology, which is our grade 9 science, and the curriculum that we are offering there, we are using there. And we will be field testing some biology curriculum this year and maybe into the fall. We're kind of working that out now, but all the bio classes will be testing out some curriculum this spring. And then what's also really exciting at the high school is we've used this as an opportunity. What came from all of the high school teachers, the science teachers, was a need to look at our course offerings and the progression that students go through the high school and the science and engineering department. So that's where we've put a lot of our effort at the high school level. We've been surveying, we used our student surveys from the from the spring, and we've been talking with kind of smaller groups of our curriculum review, doing a lot of department work on this to come up with ideas of courses and ideas of pathways. And we're hoping in the next few weeks to run some surveys by 8th graders and 9th graders to get their interest and see how that would play out. And so we're hoping by the end of this school year to have some recommendations of where we would like to see our program go. And then that would be in time to discuss it for programs of study for next November, which means it would then be implemented for the 25-26 school year. So none of the changes as far as course pathways that we're talking about are for next year. That is done. But we need this kind of time to be able to thoughtfully work these systems out. So that's what we've been using our time for. And then there's more. So also, so we've been doing our science, technology, engineering work, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there are other projects going on. So DLCS are the Digital Literacy and Computer Science Standards. There's another set of state standards. At the high school level, the computer science ones fall into the science department. And at the K through 8 level, they don't quite fall anywhere. So we were fortunate enough to get a grant from DESE this year to be able to start exploring how could we improve our work with the DLCS standards. And we selected the grade 6 through 8 band just to look. And part of that was my decision in knowing that we're doing our science review and knowing that computer science falls in at the high school within the department of just looking at that pathway and how can we grow it. So we've been working on that and looking for it. I don't have really any updates on that now, but that's ongoing. I mentioned the high school course sequence and offerings. And then another piece that's just a requirement of the AP coursework. We offer a lot of AP science classes at Wakefield High. And according to the College Board, who runs the AP program, you need to have updated AP textbooks within 10 years. And so as far as a cost and something that we just need to be evaluating is what textbooks are we using in each of those AP courses, and most of them are in need of updating or in need of refreshing. And so kind of figuring that out and what costs come with that as well.
I think we've kind of talked about these.
I think
Yeah,
we hit
so
them all.
these are really our next steps. I think we've sort of talked through those.
We're living it.
And so I think, you know, if folks have any questions about what's been done, the direction we're going, we're happy to answer those.
All right.
When you say you're field testing, are you like officially piloting certain curriculum with the publishers or totally
So
different?
we try to distinguish between a field
Yeah.
test and a pilot. So a pilot would mean that really everybody is doing all the things
Right.
for a rather extended period of time. And what we found over our previous 2 curriculum reviews is that doing a smaller field test really gets us a good sense of what kind of features might be useful for the teachers, what they like or what they don't like. And so we're doing smaller things, like rather than saying we're going to pilot something for 6 months or a whole year, teachers are taking like 1 unit or 1 module and
Got
really
it.
For like
working
2
through
weeks
that
or
for
something
2
like
weeks,
that.
like
Okay.
on a
Of like-
smaller scale, to try to, and they're going in with really pointed questions, like you know, we like these 3 things, but we're not sure if this will meet this student need or if this will work with our time, or you know, they're kind of really being targeted to their own experience. One of the challenges with doing a bigger pilot is if you have some teachers doing one thing for a long time and other teachers doing another thing for a long time, they like the thing they did.
Yeah.
Right. And so then to try, so when you field test in smaller doses, all teachers can use all the things and then talk and be able to compare a little with more information.
Right. And we do collect data throughout that kind of short field test where we're looking at some of those first questions we had, which are what are students doing? What are teachers doing? Is that matching with our vision? And just bringing it all
Right.
back to this guidebook.
Cool.
Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
You mentioned the grant funding for the DLCS curriculum. Is there any grant funding for any of the other curriculum available to us?
So it's a great question. So I would say that Wakefield in general is pretty on top of any of the DESE grants that come up. We apply a lot to them. So this,
Yes, you do.
Christine can vouch for mine. So there are smaller grants. So for example, for the science curriculum review, we are in kind of like a professional training. I attend a professional training throughout the year, working towards high quality instructional materials. And then the DESE will support a grant to help support that process. So for example, paying for this, I think we got this, right? Paying
We
for
did,
the,
that was
that was the yes one. Paying for the stipends of the teachers on the curriculum review. We've got the grant for that. So we find them where we can, the CS one is specifically, it was interesting. It was more about creating a vision and identifying needs moving forward. And then we could choose to apply for the continuation grant or not. So.
But I think, Pete, just to add to that, in terms of like big picture, that there are, I mean, what we were able to receive for grants, particularly with ELA and math, was pretty significant, and I think it helped to move things at a quicker pace in terms of doing full adoption, K through 4, pre-K, K to 12. So that is something that we're thinking about with science when the team does come to a decision, just like what's a realistic rollout, given that it'll probably have to be funded primarily by our local budget.
Yeah, there's not a lot of excess money to grow the local
Right.
budget right now. So.
Right.
Yeah, I would
So
say
we're
like,
thinking about that.
yeah, like generally speaking, the high quality instructional materials grants are actually not usually focused on science, partly because there are almost 0 of those that are on that list yet. Right, so like that particular part of the HQIM program for the Department of Education is not fully developed yet, and so those do not necessarily exist. Otherwise, we'd apply for them, Christine.
I don't know if we called them.
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
So you're thinking about offering alternative pathways, 9 to 12,
Yeah.
for the science journey. What is being offered now too limiting? Like what are you seeing
Sure.
now
Awesome.
that
Great
is
question.
making you think that
Yeah.
that an alternative path?
Yeah, so and when I say alternative pathways, that almost sounds too, I think we wanted to offer more choice is really the end of the day. So we're not imagining eliminating any course offerings, but instead specifically we were looking at, to address your question, so in Wakefield, students have to take 3 years of science. And that 3rd year of science, you have some students who are taking multiple sciences, they're heading in that direction, and that's what they're choosing. and that's where their interest is. And other students are looking to get their third year of science and satisfy that graduation requirement, having an enriching experience, and then move on to other passions that they have. And what we were finding is in that third year of science, for those students, we didn't have a lot of options. We don't have a lot of options. So students could be taking environmental science. They could be taking a half year of astronomy and a half year of oceanography. They could be choosing an AP science or a higher level science, but that wasn't really fitting what the students were looking for. So part of what our process is to look at offering some more of those half year choices so that students, instead of just saying, well, I want to do astronomy or oceanography, that we have a sampling that they could say, oh, I'm interested in this, I'll try that for a half a year. Or I'm interested in that, I'll try that for a half a year. And hopefully just give more enriching, rewarding students in their interest areas. And part of what we're going to be doing with the survey is trying to identify here are some possibilities, where do students fall? So it's not us making that decision, but we're doing it based off the data.
Is that all? Yeah, I can't see. Oh, go ahead.
So thank you. This is great. It's fun to see sort of where the curriculum is going to go. I have a couple of questions. Starting sort of, I liked how you talked about sort of at the elementary level, tying into like literacy standards and some other things that are going on in the classroom. I immediately thought of sort of the frog presentation that we recently had, and how many different places sort of that tied into different curriculums, different pieces from stories to science to ecology. And also the fourth grade Natural Park sort of virtual field trips that we saw Mr. Bouchard's class taking, and how he was trying to sort of find places to tie that into where he was in curriculum, and even just hearing the students, sort of what they were learning from rangers, bringing that back to the classroom.
Seeing different ecosystems,
bringing,
landscapes, there's tons there.
Yeah, bringing what the classroom had like to the rangers to ask sort of pointed questions. It was great. So I like to see those unique tie-ins and where they can sort of relate, because it is such an all-encompassing, it's everything about the natural world and computer science and physics. It's like the breadth of it is so much wider, I think, sometimes than literacy and math. And we often think of those as, to me, they seem like finer points. You can definitely get lost in the weeds on science. That could just be because I'm a nerd. But so one thing when we talk about those curriculums that I was drawn to is there was a lot of talk about making the curriculum accessible on multiple levels to students and finding various entry points. I'm wondering if that's sort of front of brain for you as you think about curriculum.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much about how having curriculum in high level rigorous content accessible to lots of students, that it doesn't actually mean having plan A, B, and C for individual kids. It means having an activity where there's multiple entry points. It means having different ways where kids can show their reasoning, either through doing or through writing or through speaking or through presentation. And it really means this sort of a little bit more of a universal design in line with the science practices that give that accessibility, versus the prior model, when so much of, you name it, math, ELA, science, et cetera, was taught from a really content-based way, where it's like, oh, we need to know this handful of things. When you do it experientially and through learning, through problem solving, it becomes more accessible. And so that's sort of the big pedagogy shift for our teachers. That's the practical pedagogy part of NGSS to now, versus how many of us experience lots of different subjects in school. There's a lot more research out there about how when you have kids engaging in science that different way, it is automatically more accessible. And so we have to get our pedagogy in that position.
And I think to your point, and kind of a specific example of that in a science classroom, it would be a shared experience that allows students, as far as an entry point goes, to connect with their own stories and what you're experiencing. So that it's what are you noticing in this thing? And it could be that they're Zooming with a national park. Like, well, what did you notice in the background? And we're all watching this. And, oh, I've been to a national park. Or, oh, my aunt lives, like everyone has their story and can offer something to that. And in doing so, you have an entry point for those students.
Great. And then to sort of the outcome piece of this, like sort of where we're going to know if it's successful. In the same way that I think it's great that sort of science has this wide breadth, it must be a challenge to sort of be able to assess sort of where we need to course correct, where we're having successes, what tools are available, because I'm aware of like iReady and sort of Lexia, and like there are mechanisms that we can gather data on how students are learning. How does that work for the
It's a
science
really
curriculum?
tricky question that I think about a lot. So we have the MCAS, that's only 2 years, and that's measuring 3 years worth of information and skills. So it's a tough number to track. It's important, but it's definitely not all. We look at the high school level, we can look at AP participation or even honors versus college prep participation in just some more rigorous, challenging coursework. Not only numbers, but who are the students that are participating in these classes. But as far as speaking to like iReady or this benchmark testing that we see now in math and literacy, that doesn't exist right now for science. And it's tricky because I would love that data, but we would need to be testing on the practices, right? Because you might learn, or you might learn about frogs, let's say, in a certain content, and then you're not necessarily learning, you're building on the thinking skills, but you're not necessarily building on how you're using that content skills. So I'm on the hunt for, I would love to find ways of assessing those practices. And part of what we do hope to have as an outcome is more common assessments that are not just written tests, but are that what we call performance tasks, where students have to analyze or they have to discuss, and it's not necessarily like a debate, but they have a novel situation that they're trying to solve. And this is a long way off, but if we, my hope would be to then assess the practices through that and be able to see growth in those practices over time.
I think the absence of sort of those more comprehensive benchmark assessments that we use in the other places gives us a really big opportunity to explore what kinds of formative assessment help teachers drive their instruction, what kind of things we have internally that are really catered to the things that we value, because it doesn't currently exist, like, and that's going to be another layer, like once you sort of get all of your scope and sequence ducks in a row, the next thing is, so like, now how do we know it's going well, and that goes everything from like at the end of a school year to the end of a unit to the end of a class, just really supporting teachers in how do you assess, and that's going to need to be new practices with our new pedagogy.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Eileen.
I just wanted to give you guys feedback on, from a personal story, my kids have been taking, they're in 6th grade, so they've been taking STEM class.
Oh yeah.
Which they thoroughly enjoy and has given so much confidence to one of my kids who doesn't do well in ELA and he has a little bit of trouble there. And that has given, he won like the catapult thing. Oh, yeah. He won that. Whatever. Did you guys like that motion? But it's given so much confidence and like it really is working. So that STEM class is just like wonderful. So just some feedback if you want some testimonial, some data. It's a wonderful class. And obviously there's science class with Miss Galante. Shout out to Miss Galante, is wonderful as well. So
great, thank you. Yeah. The STEM class, for those of you who don't know, is primarily like an engineering technology course. It's fantastic. I agree. I love seeing students thrive there who might not always be thriving in other classes. Yeah. A lot of students come alive in those classes, and they're moving around and they're active. And it's what we want students to be doing, right? So it's great.
It's an amazing class. It's new, right? Ish.
A little bit.
I don't know the history of how it's been here long.
It's been here since I've been here, and I'm in my 6th year, so Doug might know.
Okay.
I think was that.
It's been here, I want to say 8 years.
8 years.
Yeah.
Oh, so not new, but it's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's a really great opportunity for kids. So.
Go ahead, Kevin. Sorry.
Oh no, you got it.
No, I was just gonna tell Joanne. I'll share with them the picture how you integrated science with the high school building project, with the. I thought that was
This was a shout out to Jason Zerfus.
It was great.
Teacher extraordinaire at the high school. So we have one of our physics classes was doing an egg drop experiment, and they had gone to Landrigan, not Landrigan, I take that back. They had gone to the field house, and they were on the 2nd story, and there was a ladder, and they were dropping, like they had reached as high as they could test this egg, and there were 2 students remaining with cool projects. And Jason Zerfus had remembered that they had just put up the fencing and they had just started cutting trees out in front of the school. This was like last week. So we went outside, and he nicely asked the man running the bucket truck, who then proceeded to absolutely like put down whatever he was doing and bring the egg drops up to like great heights. And one still survived. So it was fantastic. The kids they were thrilled. They were thrilled. It was a really fun moment.
Oh, I was going to say, is there a photo?
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a great moment.
Sorry, Coach.
Yeah, I think it's really important, for in science for there to be like that like interest thing, like to get kids like into it. And there's so many data points you can look at when you're trying to track this stuff. Like last year, I know it's really stereotypical to lump the math and science kids together. Like I'm a history teacher, we all do it. It's like, oh, the math science kid.
We want the ELA.
The ELA kid, yeah. But I noticed like last year, like, and I know like AP tests are just there's like one metric, right? But generally you think of those kids, you're highly motivated, kids in the subject, oh, I'm gonna take AP calculus because I like math or history, this and that. And like last year there were 115 like total tests that were taken in math, computer science, and only 47 in science. So you would think that those numbers would be more equal. So I think it's a good thing that we're looking at, trying to find ways to calculate more interest to try to get that balance. Because, science is great.
Oh, go ahead, sorry. I know you've been waiting down.
I want to say thank you to Joanne and to Lindsay, especially to Joanne for creating opportunities for kids to show what they know, and by building things, by putting their hands on things, and it creates a different leveling in the class, right? There are kids that are excelling in engineering that other students didn't know when they were sitting in rows and columns. And it creates a different status. It creates a different level of confidence, like you're saying.
Absolutely.
And it's real, right? And so I want to thank you for that. Joanne and I recently visited Validate at the head of the lake, which is Ian and Winnie Carpenter's company, where we have some of our students doing internships there. And so the reason we went there, they do network solutions and engineering work for telecommunications companies. But the reason we went there is we were invited, but we went to just see and hear what our students were doing. Yeah. And I think it was a great day for us to be proud of our kids, but also to be like amazed at opportunities that are there, and that's something that we're thinking more and more about. And before you end, and we kind of let you go, I'm wondering if you can share a little bit with the committee about kind of what the new high school might bring for opportunities.
Oh, yeah. We can talk about that. Sure. So we're really excited about the new high school. We'll have kind of state-of-the-art science classrooms and labs. Right now, I think at this point, many of you have toured them and seen the status of our current high school science classes. And we're really excited for just a fresh start. No tripping hazards, things where they should be, and technology and tools available to us to really provide our students with the opportunities that they deserve in this situation. So the science classes are going to be exciting, but then the engineering spaces, kind of along this idea, we've felt a lot of excitement as we've gone through the process of discussing the classrooms, and the architects have been super responsive to talking through, specifically in the engineering classrooms, actually we want this over here, we want this to be able to be on display, and so there's a lot of opportunity there for shop, for like more woodworking, more mechanical tools that we just don't have the space or equipment for currently. We have an engineering room, which is they work really hard on it, but it's like a transformed classroom, and it's very makeshift. So we're really excited about the opportunities that new space will provide, and that's also right across. They're kind of going to be right across from each other, from like a kind of a more of a clean lab to more of a woodworking, or not. It's not all woodworking, but more of a shop mode. And so where we can have more, whether that's 3D printing, robotics, kind of that electronic piece, but having the view between the two, students can be moving back and forth, teachers can be supporting both of those classes. It's going to be great. We're really excited. That's an easy one.
Thanks so much. I bring that up because it's also, if you recollect, a part that we need to complete for our NEASC accreditation. And so I think we are kind of developing content, and our teachers are really chomping at the bit. They're super talented. Our science teachers are super talented, and I think that they are just eager to have the opportunity to get a little time and space in a new area to create.
I think even going back to our process, and even just having a vision for our department has been a game changer. That the process of creating that and having everyone on board, we went through so many iterations and brought the whole department in on that. And now to have that as kind of a guidepost to frame our excitement and to drive us is really exciting. So it's been a good process.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would also just add, thank you for community STEM that we had recently a few weeks back, because I think it's just not curriculum, but it's you sort of ignite the passion sort of in the students. I know last year my fourth grader got very excited about the opportunities that sort of he was going to be exposed to in fifth grade, moving on to the Galvin, and even kids younger sort of see the things that they can look forward to. And even get excited about sort of things going on. I think Gigi made a guest appearance, so like math was there. But that bringing that back sort of post-COVID, I know we used to do a community STEM night and stuff, but the elementary STEM, just seeing all the kids and all the families taking part is great. It's a great way to foster it, not just in the classroom.
It was really, we were really happy with it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. That transition we made last year and then also this year to include some local businesses, but also really highlighting what we're doing in the schools and helping the kids to show their families how fun it is what they're doing in school with both math and with SE Math, and our elementary science teachers come and do some things. I think it's been a really nice blend to kind of help give the community a better sense of what are we doing in here and what is exciting about math and science.
And it ties into a lot of the partnerships, like in talking with Validate. Validate has a table at STEAM Night. They're incredibly supportive of our work. And having the BB library there, just creating those community partnerships, because it's not just classrooms, right? It's everywhere. And so I think opportunities like that, I'm excited about those partnerships too and making those work. So it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Good stuff.
Sometimes you just want to go back to school.
I just said I probably would have liked science if I learned it this way.
You would have, right? And so we are super fortunate to have the curriculum governance structure that we have. You know, when our curriculum coordinators come in and they kind of lead this work, and Karen and I have worked hard to pair people up so no one's working as a singleton, and we're just really proud. I think we're the only district probably in a 50-mile radius that has a governance structure like this for curriculum. And I think it's really starting to pay a dividend to our kids, because there's more offerings, there's more opportunities. You can feel it in Joanne's voice, the excitement, right? And the ownership the teachers feel, where we're not doing iteration after iteration. It's just, this is us, right? And so how are we kind of not only being proud of our work, but adding value in the experiences that kids are having? And I think she's really done a great job. And I think so I need to thank Kara as well in that space for leading that group. So this is the slide deck that we presented in the last 2 weeks. So for the FY proposed budget, we talked about kind of, what the priorities would be. We had talked about, I'm just going to summarize quickly and get to the kind of the slide deck, which covers our increase, which I believe is slide 6 or 7. So we talked about really the need to support the teacher contract. It's a priority. We're very, very pleased that we were able to collaborate with the WEA and get a tentative agreement for a new teacher contract. And that includes increases by percent on steps, columns, and longevity. There's also a parental leave component in there that really kind of highlights and makes our parental leave support unique out of all the systems here on the North Shore. And so intervention services continue to be critically important for us. We talked about acceleration opportunities for elementary, middle, and high. And so budget priorities for us, the group that we're supporting is we have 604 employees that work in the Wakefield Public Schools, serving 3,431 students in pre-K through 12 and as well as post-academy. The next bullet we can't say enough about, right? People make the place, right? The opportunity to recruit, develop outstanding teachers and support them where they are in their careers is the lifeblood of the district, right? So there's no greater example than Lindsay and Joanne, right? And so not only are they curriculum leaders, they jump in and teach, and they've taught for a short period of time. They're, teaching classes. They're filled in and taught for semesters, and so they walk the walk and work shoulder to shoulder with teachers. And I think that our people need to be highlighted, including kind of pipelines for difficult to fill positions, right? And so again, the state is talking about labor and the need to really pay attention to labor and how we're supporting labor, but no one groups teachers in that, right? Everyone thinks construction labor and engineering and computer science, but we need to start to think about and lead the conversation and and how we're supporting and developing teachers. And so more to follow on that. Preventative maintenance with DPW, and so improvements to buildings, facilities is critical. I had shared in a prior meeting that just due to a space issue that we needed to turn away families in our pre-K environment. That's a tough pill to swallow. And a kind of, if we had more space available, we would take all of them, because eventually they're going to be Wakefield Public School students, and the more opportunity we have to have time with students, the better off we will be in having success with them over time. So we talk about knowns and unknowns. Again, human resources are critical. The need to create schedules to provide increased opportunities for intervention, acceleration, and supplemental support. Kara and I have talked about not only the acceleration, you've heard a lot about the acceleration academy that we do for kindergarten in the summer, but we're doing a pilot right now with Wakefield Academy where we're doing kind of math support in a similar format that we do in the summer, right? And so we'll kind of report out on that pilot in the spring, but more to follow there. We need to prioritize professional development, because as student needs are changing, we need to support teachers to support students, right? Or we need to help teachers learn about new ways to support the new demands that they're being faced with in the classroom. So I talked about pre-K already. Unknowns, growing EL population. We talked a little bit about that in our first meeting. The increased cost for goods and services. We need to balance our in-district programs with our out-of-district costs. And so there's not the same pipeline that existed pre-COVID, where if we couldn't educate a student in district that was receiving special education services and they needed to go out, we had multiple kind of venues or places that we might be able to seek a placement. Now those placements are either all full or the pipelines are just so backed up that we need to think differently about what we're doing there. And we really need to continue to invest, right? And so I'm really proud of the work that Rosie Galvin has done in this space. The more students that we can educate in district, the greater cost savings it is, not only cost savings to the district, but we're also keeping students close to their families and students close to their friends, which has a real qualitative benefit in regard to social emotional support. So, again, challenges and beyond, you've heard these. I don't want to kind of read the whole list. So this is the infographic where we talked about no new positions for this coming year. We would try to reconstitute any positions that we might need, right? And we're actively talking about that, and we hope to, after the motion and the vote this evening, to send an update out to the teaching staff about how we're going to need to invest resources and time similarly and what might be some differences next year as we move forward. This is just survey information. I won't go back through all of this, but I want to get to Christine's favorite slide. Do you want to talk about this?
Sure. Well, this is the money slide. It's where we are right now compared to what we're projecting for next year. It's been a lot of conversation about what our actual base budget is, so I think this is important to highlight. The personnel services in fiscal 24, which is the year we're currently in, right now is just over $42 million. I think if you remember, if most of you were on the committee last year, it was about where the revenue to support that was coming from. We went to the town, we went to FinCom, and we decided that we were going to look again at our revenue accounts, special revenue accounts, our revolving accounts, and in conjunction with the town, who was supporting us with some opera money, that we decided to reduce what we were asking from the tax levy by $500,000. So the base budget, what we're actually funding didn't change. We're still funding $50 million, but it's where that $500,000 of revenue is coming from. So we asked school committee, you all, to vote on a budget last year of $49,590,191. So where are we now for fiscal 25, which you have in front of you tonight, is that personnel services is growing from 42 million to 44 million. So that's contractual, the collective bargaining agreements. It's all of our steps and lanes, people who are moving based on where they were now. If they've taken additional classes, they move in columns. So it's that plus all of our bargaining agreements. So that's how we get from 42 to 44. The other two lines, it's minimal increases. We're still hovering just over 6 million of contractual services and just over 2 million of supplies and materials. That is including, our biggest other increase in this budget is utility cost. It's a fixed cost. It goes up every year. We're monitoring it, but we're still hoping to maintain. It's a slight, I think it's 2.5% over last year of utility costs. So that's how we get to the budget that's before you tonight for vote is $52,319,699, which is about a 5.5% increase from last year. We're fortunate, it's level service. We're not eliminating any positions. We're holding everything that we've built over the past 4 years. The programs that Doug was talking about, we're able to keep everything whole. Does anyone have any questions?
I just had a comment.
Sure.
One thing that I think is important for people to realize that 5.5% seems like a big number, but the COVID money is drying up. Like, it's dried up, and there's towns across the state that are really hitting budget shortfalls and are really in a world of hurt because, they weren't planning out long-term forecasting from 2 years ago. 2 years ago and 1 year ago. And I think that this budget is something to be proud of because we're, level servicing, we're not cutting positions. And obviously we needed to hire adjustment counselors, we need to hire for mental health issues that people were talking about, left and right during COVID. And the fact that we're creating a level service budget, I think in this climate is something to be appreciated, so.
What we heard loud and clear was look at your revolving accounts, look at the balances that you were able, due to COVID, to have higher balances than normal. So we did that. So you'll see this number assumes an additional $325,000 more in 25 coming from those revolving accounts. But what you'll see in the budget document is that will only sustain us for the next 3 to 4 years. There's going to be a drop off of those revolving account balances. We're fortunate to have it, but it's not going to be sustainable for the long haul. So yes, ESSER is over, ESSER is gone. ESSER was the COVID-related grant money. It got us through COVID. It helped us build the programs we were just talking about. But ESSER is over. The ARPA money is done. So now here we are. How do we sustain it? We've also looked at circuit breaker. Circuit breaker is not a revolving account, but it is a special revenue account. So we're looking at helping to sustain the out-of-district costs by applying for a circuit breaker every year and maintaining that. It's about 1.3 right now. We're hoping it goes up maybe slightly 1.4, 1.5 next year, but we don't know. Depends on what the budget based by the state will set it at. But again, we're looking at all of those accounts, so we've done our homework, and we're able to, like you said, maintain about 5.5% with no cuts.
Do you want to make a motion? Then we'll open up for discussion.
Yeah, I had a question based on that. I'm looking over my motion sheet, and my motion sheet amount is higher than my budget book amount by about 80,000. And I wasn't sure if there was a delta. So
What is I don't know.
the amount in the motion is 52,399,699. Typo. Good. Gotta ask. Okay, I can make a motion. Move that the school committee approves the fiscal year 2025 budget for the administration and operations of the Wakefield Public Schools in the amount of $52,319,699 as presented in the proposal dated March 12th, 2024, and to bring this proposal forward to annual town meeting for further action.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Kevin.
I think this is a really solid budget, and just appreciate the subcommittee and, of course, Christine, all of your work. I know it's a long process that you go through, and I mean, I think you explained it so well. This is a really good budget book. I did read most of the extra pages as well, but it was really well done. I think it's really explained really well. We are able to keep all the services that we're currently offering. We're able to give, I think some good, raises to our staff and our faculty. And so I'm enthusiastically supporting this budget and just really thankful for all the work that's gone into this by all of you that have been so intimately involved for a while.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. Yeah, I just actually wanted to echo some of Dr. Piscato's comments, but really just to emphasize to the community what a solid process that this was, and how even going back a year ago now, or even 2 years ago now, we saw the cliff coming. We knew what we were facing, and I think it was incredibly thoughtful. I think we should thank our partners at the town hall for the work. While we haven't always been on the same page, we're in the same community. We're all living and breathing the space that is necessary to make this work valuable and to make this work affordable. So I think that's an incredibly important piece too. That we are here because of the feedback that we received a year ago. We're here because we've reacted to that feedback, and that's a direct point of appreciation for the superintendent and the business administrator for that level of work. I think starting the process earlier than had been typical back in the fall, knowing that we're going to really need to roll up our sleeves and be looking at this and landing, as Kevin said, and as Christine said as well, at a level service budget was no easy task. I think as a point of caution, just to say out loud that we, while it's entirely appropriate that we took a strong look at the use of revolving funds, I think it's critically important to note, to hearken to what Christine mentioned moments ago, but that also is not a long-term strategy. That is good. That means that we have addressed our partners at Town Hall. We've addressed the type of things that we needed to look at to be able to meet all of the towns and the taxpayers' expectations. But it's not part of a 5 or 10 year plan. And I think that's some of the work that we need to be looking at, coming into building, FY 27 and beyond. It's not just the knowns and unknowns that Doug shared with us moments ago and a month ago. But so I just also wanted just to say that, a 5.5% increase is certainly manageable. It's certainly higher than probably any of us wanted, but it's manageable. It meets the it meets the teaching and learning needs of staff and students, which is a critical piece. Even though we're we're out of the, we're in the post-COVID years, but we are still adjusting. And we will constantly be adjusting. And I think if we had to get rid of some of those COVID positions, we would be taking, steps backward. That would be far worse than if we were to, cut the budget down to 5.2%. What we would save in that would be penny wise and pound foolish, in my view. So I again, just I'm enthusiastically supporting this, and I just want to thank the administration and everyone that participated in the surveys. The survey results are that the faculty, the staff, and the teachers participated in, as well, of course, as the community. Even though we didn't get any public comments last week at the public hearing, but that notwithstanding, there's a level of satisfaction at the work that's been done, and that brought us to this point speaks pretty highly about some satisfaction, and highlighted with some a resolution toward the next 3 years of some employment agreements with our largest group of employees, and that's important work. We need to do the best we can for the frontline the teachers and Unit A members who are doing this work and living their heart and soul for the kids of town. So I'm enthusiastically supporting the budget, and I appreciate the administration's and the committee's work.
Thank you, Tom. Do you just want to, Christine, I know we did this at the budget hearing, just explain the rest, because once we vote on the budget, it doesn't stop here. Like, we're not approving the money. Just explain a little bit.
I had a question about, because I'm reading the bullet here, where it said, and I don't think this is news necessarily, but so where it says that we're including the 100,000 from ARPA funding from the town, I think that's the town in their budget meeting yesterday talking about ARPA funds did not include that in theirs. So I think we may find a need to adjust, not necessarily the total amount, but some things within our budget to accommodate that shift. And I think we can do that. But I think that one sort of bullet point we may just need to edit out. For one.
No, go ahead, finish. I apologize.
Sorry, that was kind of the thing I had to say about that, and I was going to say something else, but you had something to that.
No, I was just going to follow up on that point as well. I think that the discussions that town council and the town administrator are having about that $100,000 is still sort of a work in progress. It still needs to go to town meeting, just as the budget that we're bringing forward tonight does. And whether that stays intact or not, we will be back after town meeting for a sort of an affirmation vote.
Yeah. So, and the other thing I was just going to say to maybe echo what Tom said is that 5.5% is really it's a large labor number, and it sort of speaks directly to sort of wanting to keep our pay for our teachers competitive. I think sort of during the process, as long as it was, I think we saw a lot of community support, and in that, as much as we saw community members sort of rallying sort of behind our teachers in public, sort of in front of schools and stuff, I think this is where that sits. Is now it's sort of, some people have commented like a budget isn't just a budget, it's a moral document. Like this is a reflection of wanting to pay a good wage to the people that sort of educate our students. And I think this is a good budget that does that keeps us competitive, and keeps salaries where I think can be good for teachers.
Thank you. Oh, so just so Christine, just high level, after then it goes to town council, then really the actual dollars get voted on at town meeting by everyone who lives in Wakefield. That's so.
So tonight, hopefully a positive vote on the budget, and then Doug and I will also attend a town council meeting on April 8th, and there's one more meeting, it'll be our second meeting to FinCom, just to go over again some of the numbers, to fine tune some of the questions that were asked, and then we go to town meeting, which is a Monday night this year, April 29th, I believe. It's a Monday night. hopefully we're on the first night, the Monday night, and we will be supported by the town and FinCom with favorable action. So that's where we take it. So this has been a long process. We started in November, and here we are, it'll be in April.
Thank you.
Yep.
If there's no other questions or comments, all those in favor? I don't see any opposed, so passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Christine.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Christine. Nicely done. So the last item on the agenda is
No, you're done.
I guess
You just said 3.
I guess I'm done. So yeah, I think we're gonna maybe when we get to subcommittees we can talk a little bit about school climate.
Well, thank you.
Great.
Dr.
Thank
Lyons.
you so much.
I do not have any comments and updates, so we have some gifts tonight.
2 gifts.
Yep. I think we have a gift from Friends of Wakefield Girls Hockey, stipend to assistant girls hockey coach, and then a gift from girls basketball, stipend for 2 assistant girl basketball coaches. So just thank you to those boosters for helping out there and supplying that. So I have a motion to move that the school committee accept with gratitude the donation of $1,000 from Friends of WHS Girls Hockey, a stipend for assistant girls hockey coach for the 2023-2024 winter season.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Can I just ask you a question?
Sure.
I noticed the differences in terms of the monies being allocated, at least vis-a-vis the gifts for assistant coaches. How is that determined? Is it determined by the booster organizations that they're going to pay, say, $1,000 for an assistant coach, where basketball's, I mean, if it's literally a split, I'm not sure, is $3,000. So how does that get determined?
It depends on fundraising ability, the number of students in the program, the number of students that the sport supports, if they need how many coaches, but it's also the ability for the boosters to raise a certain amount of money.
Yeah, okay.
So it can
So it
fluctuate.
does differ greatly, potentially.
Definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
So a motion made and seconded, and we went that far, and we had discussion. All right. Right on track. If there's any more questions or comments, all those in favor? Seeing none opposed, it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Second motion would be that move that the school committee accept with gratitude the donation of $6,000 from Wakefield girls basketball, stipends for 2 assisting girls basketball coaches for the 2023-2024 winter season.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? None opposed, it passes unanimously. Thank you, and thank you to the boosters for those generous donations. Oh, back to me. Subcommittee reports. Finance and facilities, Mr. Markham.
We've not had a meeting since the last meeting, which I guess effectively was the public hearing, last week. But I think everything that we've been working on has been thoroughly discussed. And again, thanks to the administration, and thanks now to the school committee for supporting the budget.
Thank you. Labor and personnel, Mr. Ingles.
Yep, we have not met since our last meeting. The WEA Unit A contract is still a tentative agreement, sort of finalizing some details, waiting for ratification. In the last public meeting that we had of labor and personnel, we talked a little bit about a school climate survey that had gone around. I think I mentioned it in one of our last meetings. And I just bring it up again to talk a little bit about sort of some direct actions that kind of came from that. So I think the administration at the high school, led primarily by Principal McLeod, has sort of taken it upon themselves in their leadership team and in her administrative team to sort of try and address some of the concerns that were brought up in that survey. There's in culture, it's a little bit of both sides of the street, a little bit of administration, a little bit of sort of the educators directly, and how we can partner in different areas. I think she's currently sort of collecting some data points and what staff feel could be actionable to sort of communicate better, just create a better cohesive sort of workplace that's respectful for sort of all staff, administrators in the building.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, I don't mean to. Go ahead, Tom.
No, Dr. Lance,
Oh, okay.
speak.
No, I think I was just going to add to that. You know, I think, you know, the committee needs to know and the public needs to know that we're certainly open to improving how we're kind of doing business, how the administration is doing business, you know. And I was pleased that, Stephen, that you highlighted kind of the work of the high school administration and hosting a conversation at a faculty meeting to kind of make this public, right? And so the idea of improvement often starts with, you know, hard conversation, right? And getting to the heart of, or, you know, what is actionable, right? And who owns what, right? What can the administration do? What can teachers do? And I think that Principal McLeod and her team kind of provided opportunities. They gave the faculty index cards to give feedback, like what do you feel if you're a faculty member at the school? What do you feel teachers can do to improve climate, and what can faculty do? How can faculty support this process, you know? And it sounded like they were working in kind of three buckets or three kind of areas that were highlighted from the survey, which was communication, you know, presence, a greater presence in the around the school, and also just kind of climate. How can we address individual climate issues either in classes or departments? And I think that work continues, and I appreciate that they've taken the lead on that, you know, and I appreciate the WEA is I believe still open to kind of collaborating in this space, right? We can't do this without them, nor them without us, right? And so this can't be a one-sided conversation. And so we will continue to work with them. And we highlighted collaboration a couple times tonight, right? And how critical that is, not only in our curriculum work, but really in everything that we do, right? And so, you know, Kara talked about the calendar earlier tonight, and the feedback that we're getting and how they're supporting that. Again, I think it's only going to make the calendar better. And so I'm kind of very optimistic about the work that the high school administration is doing and how we can support them, right? Both the labor subcommittee as well as the district leadership. So more to follow.
Thank you. Tom, go ahead.
Thanks. No, I just wanted to add into this topic. I first really following up on what Dr. Lyons said, but maybe to just add a bit. I'd like to go so far as to thank the WEA for bringing some of these concerns forward. That I think at the end of the day, that's part of a collaborative process too. That even if we don't agree on everything, the fact that that we are having thoughtful conversations can lead us to a better place. I think it's important that we support the work of our teachers. I think it's important that we support the work of the administration that is sort of working to bring some resolution to what has not been an easy 4 years. I mean, I think we should all sort of acknowledge that we're coming out of some very difficult times, and we are building anew. It's not just a budget that we've just discussed for months now and approved, but we're working on relationships, and we are working on building a better workspace and a better teaching space. I think one of the things that goes along with appreciating the survey that the teachers undertook was that it's important for the community to know that we at the school committee and at we take this seriously. I know Dr. Lyons take this seriously. I know Principal McLeod takes this seriously. We have discussed the survey and its impacts at finance subcommittee meetings. We've discussed it at a couple of labor relations subcommittee meetings. At the last labor relations subcommittee meeting, Principal McLeod came in and explained exactly the type of things, Doug, that you were referring to, and I think it was very enlightening. I think one of the things that impressed me the most with Principal McLeod's thoughts was some inquiry that we made of what can we glean from the survey that can be useful. And there were things that she shared with us, and there were things I think she shared with her team about being able to glean from turning what has been sort of an unfortunate sense of dissatisfaction, some of the results that came about, with how do we turn that into action? How do we turn that into improvement? And so I think it's again important to note that we take it seriously. We take the work seriously, and I know the administration does, and we look forward to toward that sort of improvement of what that's going to look like. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen between now and perhaps even the last day of school. But hopefully there'll be some processes that continue, especially in the three highlights that the principal had brought up: communication, visibility, and culture. So I look forward to it continuing. I look forward to the superintendent's leadership and making sure that sort of stays on track. The type of good work that's there. I also like to think, maybe not to be Pollyanna, but people that share common values and share common outcomes can have honest, difficult conversations with each other, and at the end of the day, land in a better place. And if that's where we are, and we are seeking improvement, and we need to hold each other accountable to that. So I just wanted to add that, and I'm glad, Stephen, that you brought it up, because it is something that has been on our minds in the last several meetings.
Yeah, surveys are like evaluations, right? Like quality evaluation opportunities are really about getting to the point of what's actionable, right? And so, we will continue to offer to conduct joint surveys to kind of progress monitor, but what we're going to progress monitor is that requires face-to-face collaboration, right? And I think that's a real area of growth for us. And just looking at kind of the survey that was kind of created, and I think we will continue to collaborate with the WEA and talk about that. We have students on our council, and I'm if we're talking about checks and balances, and we're talking about the climate of the survey, we heard elementary students come in and talk about their school experience, right? And like I always often think, no one tells it better than our kids. I would welcome our students to give us any feedback who are on the committee around what they believe could help improve the climate at the high school, or their experiences at the high school. And so I hate to put, I'm not going to.
We're going to put you on the spot.
And so I know you guys have been idle for a little while, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you'd like to say something now, you're more than welcome. We can put a pin in this, and you can kind of give us feedback next time, whatever you might be comfortable with. Yeah. So.
I kind of zoned out a little.
So I'm sorry. Yeah. And so I was just saying, feedback from students is, you give us information, like what kids say. You kind of cut right through it. You say it so much better than adults often, right? And so we were just talking about the climate at the high school, and what you might think about that, and what we might do to improve climate, or improve communication, or improve your experience. So and that's a lot of information. Those are big questions.
Could be a future agenda item.
And so maybe it's a future.
There's no more room. Actually, so
but maybe, if you have, I'm just curious what you think.
Yeah. I mean, we can definitely speak to like a lot of general climate issues, but not issues, more just comments.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you guys want a more in detail, like, response to it, we can always put it to a future meeting date, and we can try to reach out to students a little more in depth.
Sure.
But I think generally within the high school we have a pretty good school climate, or almost like really just school culture. I understand that we're big on the Red Sea, for example, in athletics, and although people kind of worry about it dying out next year, it's not really going to happen. People are still going to show up. Everything's going to be fine. That's in terms of athletics. If we switch over and we go on to academics, we still have a pretty good climate. Teachers are really responsive when it comes to students and what students want. I think for the most part, students are satisfied with teachers. Obviously, there are always situations here and there, but overall, I think teachers do a good job of making sure students are heard, and generally, students don't really have any complaints. As for the new high school, I know there's students are generally excited. Some really don't care because they're not going to be at the high school when the time is built. There are some issues here or there, maybe some concerns that students might have about either the way things are going to be set up or the way things might be handled. I think some students mentioned that teachers might be sharing rooms, which is a little different for them, to put it into kinder words. But or like the science labs, and maybe there not being natural gas in there, and how that kind of will affect a lot of future science students potentially in a negative way. Again, that's really all I can speak to right now. If you guys want more detail, we can definitely provide it.
Yeah, maybe we can revisit this, right? Because go ahead.
I was gonna also emphasize on the sports and stuff. I think because I do 3 sports throughout school, and I know he does sports too. I think the community in sports is one of the best communities I've seen in school, and I think the school community is also amazing. Like he said, the education and stuff. I won't speak more on that because I don't really know right now, but I think the sports, the coaches, the teams, the atmosphere, the fundraising, and you guys are talking about the boosters and how we paid the assistant coaches and stuff, because I know I think my assistant coaches for basketball really deserve that money and stuff. So I think the community's really well for all those things.
Yeah, maybe we can revisit this and talk more about what might we do, what might the administration do to help improve your experiences, and maybe it might be a worthwhile endeavor to maybe convene some groups of kids, right? Because I think we're always better in this space when student voice is present.
Yeah, of course.
It's just one perspective.
We can definitely surveys always help. A lot of students might not answer them, but this small minority that do can always help. Whether that's an extended homeroom or something like that.
Yeah. Good. Thank you so much. Sorry to disturb you home. That's it for me.
You were done. You were done I
know.
3 items ago.
Always comes back to that.
So, it's labor and personnel. Are you
Done?
done? Okay. Student services. Eileen.
We are meeting next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Via Zoom, public, obviously. Anyone can join. We're continuing our conversation. We've spent the majority of this past year discussing late start times. And so we have done a lot of research and looked at different options. And so next week we will be meeting and kind of going over next steps of more research that is needed with the greater community. And so nothing is obviously set in stone. Nothing is happening for next school year, but just really continuing that work.
Thank you. Policy and communications, Kevin?
Yeah, I wasn't here at the last full school committee meeting, but before that we did meet and we talked about homework guidelines. There is going to be a student presentation at our next policy meeting, so we don't want to bring the new policy guidelines to the whole body until that student presentation is done, because that's going to offer some feedback about homework guidelines. And we also had our civil rights lawyer meet with us to discuss our religious holiday policy, and not just holiday policy, but basically the religious policy. And we are definitely going to share that, and then hopefully have a motion to vote on a change to that policy.
Thank you.
Are you going to meet before our next full committee meeting?
Yes, we're planning to. We're trying to just making sure the student can make it. So we're hoping to do it next Tuesday.
I was interested about your work in like the religious policy space, and as we come to sort of vote on calendar on our next like larger meeting, I'm wondering if some of your talking points might carry over into that calendar discussion.
I don't think it will.
No?
I don't
Okay.
think it'll. No, I don't think it'll impact the actual like religious holidays themselves in terms of how that would affect the calendar.
Okay.
I don't think it would affect that. There is you'll see it in part of the revision of the policy actually does talk about the classification of certain days, but I do not foresee that at all affecting the actual calendar itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
So thank God for that.
Liaison reports. Any liaison?
I told you he's on tonight.
I'm seeing no liaison reports. Moving on. The next school committee meeting will be Tuesday, April 9th, 2024 at 7. It will be black tie optional. Past hors d'oeuvres, is that what you're thinking? Yeah, okay. Future agenda items, there's a long list, some are timely, so we will add those when appropriate. Does anyone have any new future agenda items? Great. School committee, oh, wait, yeah, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to mention about the opportunity to invite our friends from the Scholarship
Yes.
Foundation to come to our meeting on the 9th. It's a timely to what's going on in the community around fundraising and efforts in scholarship awards season. So if we could have that on the April 9th meeting,
Yes.
certainly appreciate that as well.
Yes, right, we're adding them, April 9th.
Great.
We will put them early in the meetings. They can get dressed up if they want. School committee comments. If anyone has any, oh, yes.
I would just like to sort of draw attention to, I think every elementary school right now is doing, they're in some stages of a readathon. And it's sort of something that, that our household loves. And sort of you get a little bit more in-depth view of it in the schools, maybe being on school committee, but it's everything from like door decorating. It's a fun way to sort of have a little bit of competition between kids, but it's a community event where the whole school kind of gets energized. And so I just want to sort of give a shout out to those schools that are participating, and to all the kids that are sort of actively reading more than they normally do, and what a great sort of feel-good fundraiser it is. I know my kids' grandparents like love to throw $20 to the school to have the great kids read another book. So.
And Woodville's done, right? There's
Woodville is done.
I think Dolbear almost done or done?
Just finished.
Oh, Dolbear just, do you know all the schools?
I know they just finished. I think Walton, I don't think is done yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure, unless I have it reversed. But it's a lot of minutes, and if you see some of those top readers, you wonder if they sleep. It's amazing.
Should we bring the top readers in? Well, we'll let.
Yeah.
Any other school committee comments? Okay, we are going to exit. We're actually going to vote to go into an executive session. That's what we're going to do next. Right? Do you have a motion? I hope so.
Yeah. I could. How about I move that we adjourn public comment, or we adjourn this meeting, and then I'll move that we enter into executive session.
Sure.
Okay. So move that the school committee adjourn its regular meeting of Tuesday, March 26th, 2024.
Second.
A motion's been made and second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? None opposed. Passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone.
And I will move that the school committee enter into executive session. Executive session may be held to possibly deliberate on level 3 grievances brought forward by Unit A per the terms of the collective bargaining agreement. To be an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the bargaining of the public body, and the chair so declares.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I just wanted to clarify for the community, if anyone's paying attention, that at the conclusion of this executive session, we will adjourn.
Yes.
We will not conduct any other public business,
Okay.
Correct.
right?
Yep.
It's a question as much as anything, but.
That is correct. Yep.
You don't want to come back?
Well, I don't mind coming back. I just
lights
think
will be
if
out.
anyone's gonna be,
So a motion's been made and seconded. We had any more discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Do we need a roll call?
roll call.
Oh, roll call. Judy?
Yes.
Mr. Fontanella? Yes. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Ingles?
Yes.
Ms. Lehman?
Yes.
Ms. Colleran? Yes. Dr. Viscallo?
Yes.
We are now in executive session.